Free the land. This has been with your Black Agenda Report warning shot for September 24, 2010. Marco Sims, a lawyer with Earth Rights International, writes that U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit concluded that corporations could not be sued for human rights abuses under the Alien Tort Statute. The Alien Tort Statute generally allows suits in federal courts for violations of international law, but, according to the Second Circuit, not if the violation was committed by a corporation. The decision in Koibel v. Royal Dutch Petroleum marks the first time that any appellate court has rejected corporate liability under international law, and only the second time that any court has done so. Numerous courts have found that corporations are subject to the same liability as persons. The Koibel decision is based on a radical misunderstanding of international law, writes Sims. The International Court of Justice has ruled that international law respects the corporate form, and this would be impossible without allowing corporate liability. The new decision will deny justice not just to, for example, Igoni families in Nigeria, but also to victims of corporate complicity in the apartheid regime in South Africa, victims of medical experimentation in Nigeria, and possibly even victims of September 11th attacks, all cases currently being litigated in the Second Circuit. Earlier this year, the New York Times reported that the Supreme Court in Citizens United versus Federal Elections Commission overruled two important precedents about the First Amendment rights of corporations. A bitterly divided court ruled that the government may not ban political spending by corporations in candidate elections. The case involved a documentary called Hillary the Movie, a 90-minute stew of caustic political commentary and advocacy journalism. It was produced by Citizens United, a conservative non-profit corporation, and was released during the Democratic presidential primaries in 2008. This case was also very important in establishing, quote, corporate personhood. In other news, the Washington Post reports about 44 million Americans, 1 in 7, lived last year in homes which the income was below the poverty line, which is about $22,000 a year for a family of 4. This is the largest number of people since the census began tracking poverty 51 years ago. Black households fared particularly poorly as incomes dropped 4.4% compared with 1.6% for white households. Along with the rise in the number of people living in poverty, the census reported a decrease in the number of people who are living just above poverty level, suggesting that many of those just slightly above poverty slipped over the edge in the previous year. While the number of the country's poorest people is higher than in any other recorded period, the rate is not without precedent. The last time it was this high was 1994, and in the early 1960s, it was over 20%. Also, the USA Today states government anti-poverty programs that have grown to meet the needs of recession victims now serve a record 1 in 6 Americans and are continuing to expand. More than 50 million Americans are on Medicaid, the federal state program, aimed principally at the poor, a survey of state data by USA Today shows. That's up at least 17% since the recession began in 2007. More than 40 million people get food stamps, an increase of nearly 50% during the economic downturn. According to government data through May, the program has grown steadfastly for 3 years. As usual in America, corporations get a bailout while people get a sellout. This has been, with your Black Agenda Report, Morning Shot, signing off, saying, free the land.